fine. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Discovering Multifamily podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Scandariato with Red Knight Properties. And today we have a very special guest here with us. Actually known him for a long time. He's up in my neck of the woods in the New York City area, Dorian Lam, and he is the principal of Cornerstone Land Abstract. He's been in real estate for a couple decades, actually, and has seen multiple cycles and a little a topic that has been kind of overlooked on a lot of other podcasts that I've listened to, has been due diligence. And obviously, when you put a property under contract, you're trying to figure out as much as you can, from the physical inspection to environmental, and then obviously title comes along in the picture. But Dorian seems to think that, researching title, and he has a lot of experience, especially in large gateway cities like Manhattan, when there's, ground leases involved and other complicated structures, to really try to figure out before you even put a deal under contract, because some of the liens and issues that could go on could really blow up your deal. So I want to speak about when we should bring title into the picture when we're looking at acquisitions, and really on Dorian's experience too. He's pretty involved in some of the New York City commercial real estate organizations too. So really excited to have you on, Dorian.
Thank you, Anthony, for having me, and thank you for having me on your show. I look forward to this.
Excellent. So can you talk to us about high level, why is title insurance important for any transaction? And obviously there's two different types. There's owner's title and lender's title. So can you talk to us about that? I see a lot of owners not even getting owner's title policy.
Right.
Is that a mistake? Let's talk about just the due diligence.
Yeah, so I'll start really high level with what title insurance is, and then we'll dig one level down deeper as far as how it really applies in the commercial world, what's important about it, and then I'll answer your question with regards to is not getting an owner's policy a mistake. Title insurance, for the audience out there, is in essence making sure that whoever is selling the property to you actually owns it. It sounds a bit off, but there are a lot of times, especially with commercial assets, that there is partnerships involved, and you really have to just make sure that the partnership involved, as it is the sole owner of the property that's free and clear of any sort of title defects. The common example that we always give in the residential world is, in the cases of divorces, marital divorces, where one party separates from the other, and you have to make sure that you're buying it from both parties and not just one. The same would apply in the commercial world, where as you get into partnerships, there are situations in which there's partnership divorces or levels that are similar to divorces in the commercial marketplace. And you got to make sure that the operating agreement is in check, and that everybody that needs to sign when a transaction is closed is there, to make sure that you and your investor base as the new owner doesn't have any surprises where a few months down the line, somebody's making a claim to your property saying that they in fact own a percentage of what you just bought. So in that case, you would want title insurance, because title insurance would come to your defense, and title insurance would pay for any sort of litigation that's involved with that. As far as your owner's policy question, look, it goes without saying that as an owner of a title insurance company, I'm obviously going to say that you should always get an owner's title policy. But there are situations in which you don't have to, especially when you are transferring properties to, if you're just changing a partnership entity that you're transferring into a new partnership entity and there's no consideration. But in general, especially for a commercial asset in a world where there's a number of a variety of different liens or violations or arrears that you can have on a property, that you would 100% want an owner's policy so that you're covered to the fullest extent that you can. Look, at the end of the day, a component of being an investor and an operator in the commercial real estate marketplace is mitigating risk to a level that that fits your strategy. But if you had a choice to mitigate it to the lowest level that you possibly could get it, and getting title insurance, whether it be an owner's policy or a lender's policy, is part of that. The last point on this I would give is that I liken it to wearing a seatbelt in a car. It's right there. It doesn't take much effort. It doesn't really cost that much. Just put the seatbelt on. You never know.
Sure. And just a follow-up question to that, in terms of when you're doing searches and you're looking for liens, you're looking for ownership interests, when you're a buyer's under contract with the seller to acquire the property, um, sometimes, and I've actually experienced this, title companies, you really got to find someone you trust, someone who's got a good reputation, maybe has the underwriting in-house as well. Because sometimes the liens don't get picked up, and then you find out after. And then when you go to sell your property, you're like, wait a minute, there's a recorded lien on this asset. I had no idea. And now I have to discharge it in order to sell. And it's going to cost X amount of dollars. Who is really responsible for that situation beforehand? I'm assuming, especially if you purchased a title, policy from the previous company. So that was one experience I came across. I kind of want to talk about, you mentioned title insurance, just high level, would cover for litigation. How does that process even, I'm sure you've been through it. So can you maybe explain that to our audience?
Yeah, look, I mean, here's the catch about title insurance as well. There's this notion in our industry that title insurance is not needed. And I often, get told, why do I need title insurance? Because there's never a claim. And, as an insurance company, you never want a claim. But one thing that does differentiate title insurance from all other types of insurance out there is that title insurance is insuring the past, right? We're going back through records that are public record, and we're pulling out all the research. And for the most part, we can put together 95 to 99% of the picture, and hopefully in most cases 100, depending on the type. But we know the facts that we're working with. And then there's this small little gap of time that can transpire between the time we close and the time you actually get the keys, where there's a bit of an opening where there could be surprises. But in general, before I get to that point, we already know the facts that we're insuring and what happened. All other insurance is attempting to predict the future, which is why claim rates are much, much, much higher. So for an industry as a whole, you're looking at claim rates of 5% and less in our industry. And so we a lot of the time get asked, there's very little chance, I have a 5% chance at most of a claim. But what they don't realize is, and I'm not trying to be funny here, it's look, and you picked up on some of these things as far as when you ask the question, the level of research, the level of underwriting, the level of counsels you have in-house, that if you want to claim, you could use a really bad title company, and you can open yourself to more claims. But that's obviously, you're never going to do that, right? And it is important to have a title relationship, a title contact, know what it is, have someone on your side. Title insurance should be on your team as well. Normally people think of capital markets, investment sales, an attorney, right? Title insurance rep can be part of that as well. It can be part of that ecosystem, because we get involved, or we're pulled in anyway when you sign a contract and we have to do the due diligence on title. And that is, think about how much time goes into when you first sought out a piece of property, did your initial due diligence, and when it's a contract, it could be months. So think about that. Your title insurance in general is coming in months, after you've been working on a deal. We in our team, we've built this so that we can get involved much earlier. We want to be involved with your title due diligence. We created something called the Cornerstone Report, which is a light title insurance report based on the things that are most important to you. And I'll get to that in a second. But we're trying to put ourselves up a lot earlier, because I'm not going to pretend I'm a genius. This is because of, like you said, Anthony, being at the closing table for almost 2 decades and seeing deals fall apart for the most mundane reasons. Things that you should know a lot earlier than sitting at a closing table, or maybe not sitting at a closing table, but a day before trying to set up for a closing, that now you're being told that there's certain elements like defects or water bills or property history taxes that weren't paid, that said they were paid. A lot of these things are coming out, we felt, very late. So we created something called the Cornerstone Report. We were part of due diligence up front. We are part of the discussions to get around any of these title defects, and then it's a much smoother closing. But you're right. As a title insurance company, the research is extremely important. You have to have very experienced individuals. Most of our guys have been on the research side in this for over 50 years. I mentioned counsel. We have 5 counsel in-house in a 25-man shop. So, practically a quarter of our shop is attorneys. So, that is all important to us, because another thing that you may have felt, Anthony, is that because we come in as a title company so late into the process, that a lot of times we're pointed to as the reason why a deal's not moving forward. Somebody would say, well, this came up in title, you got to fix it. You can't close on your transaction. We naturally don't like being, the person pointed at. So we're only as good as our ability to help you get around problems. So we have 5 counsel in-house, and we have guys with 50 plus years of experience in reading through all the stuff that happens in the city, because we want to be able to say, all right, I saw that in the 70s, don't worry about it. Or you should worry about it, but these are 3 ways around it. So we should really be, incorporated earlier on and being part of the team, because it'll make their lives a lot easier and a lot smoother.
Understood. And I was going to ask you a follow-up question, as for my active investors who are listening, or sponsors, like myself and my company, it's, there's a lot of podcasts out there for limited partners. Okay, how do you vet the general partner? How do we vet the deals? Okay, for the sponsors, how do we vet the title company? How do we make sure they're on our side? And you hit the nail on the head with in-house counsel experience. Anything else more to add to that?
Look, it's naturally an insurance company is only as good as how long it's been around, right? So you want to know that guys have been around for a while. And then you want to know about their ability to close the deal. Are they the type of title company that's going to be active with presenting solutions to you? Or are they going to be the type of title company that acts as a stop sign and says, all right, you need to stop. Here are the 5 things you need to get to me. Get them to me. And until you get them to me, you can't close. That's not the type of title company that you would want to be aligned with, because they're not really trying to make your lives easier. So there are differences. And then you also want to know the capability as far as, now I'm an agent, which means I could write through a number of different underwriters. And that can be key, especially in the range of deals that you're looking at, between the 5 and 50 million, where there can be more hair on deals than others, right? You want somebody who can go to the underwriters and build a compelling case about your situation and have them give you the coverage that you want. If you deal with and only with the underwriter, if they tell you no, that's the only option, or you got to pick up the phone and call another underwriter and build a whole relationship with them and see if you can convince them that your situation should be looked at differently than how one of the bigger companies did. The analogy that always sticks here is that, many people are familiar with capital markets or intermediaries, where you go to a broker to help you figure out the best deal from the perspective of a lender, because they understand you, they understand how you execute, and they understand how to present you to the lender to get you the best terms possible. We're the same way with title. We understand your situation, we understand the issues that you may be having, and then we could present that to different underwriters in a way that is favorable to you.
Excellent. I wanted to ask you, you had a couple of decades of experience. Any crazy transaction? Like, what was the craziest transaction you've had to work on?
And there's a lot and different kind of categories. But in preparing for your show and who you represent, who this podcast is really targeted towards, there is one that would be of particular interest to you, which is there was a $10 million multifamily deal in Brooklyn, and contract gets signed. We're not involved. We are getting towards the closing, and a lot of the data points that I'm going to reference are available online. Things like liens or property taxes. But one of them that at least I have not seen readily available, or at least that people know is available, is water bills, right? So out comes a water bill for this property that's $1 million. So it's $1 million water bill. Think about that, right? That's 10% of the deal. right? And no one's underwriting with $1 million water bill that they could potentially assume. So that throws things awry. And this is something, honestly, that could have been found very easily, step one, after looking at the site and saying, this is a site that I like. Let's run all the bills. Let's do some, quick research as far as what potentially we have as an issue. So out came a $1 million water bill, and the seller, had to figure out what's going on because they were taken by surprise. They didn't feel that they were behind in water bills by $1 million. They didn't think their consumption was even that high. So it required an investigation. And, regardless of the results of the investigation, it turned out that there was a leak, that there was a couple of other properties tied into that water line. So it was, the point is that it required time to fix. And when you're looking to close in 2 days, you're obviously not going to close in 2 days with that type of impediment in the way. So you have all these things lined up between your investors, your debt, your however you've structured the deal, and you're gearing up to close, and now you got to wait months before anything happens. So that's one that sticks out to me because, again, it doesn't sound like much for some of the very large buildings in New York, but $1 million on a $10 million building, even those numbers are big, it's still 10%. So you have to, as a buyer, also consider, wait a minute, I want to know why it's this high also, because
Of course.
is there something about the consumption of this building that I don't know about? So that's one. We are also, Cornerstone here and my team, we're known as a developer's title company. So we are engaged a lot by developers. And the number one thing that comes up, and we've seen deals go south on this as well, is when you do your research on covenants and restrictions or any easements that can affect the developer, you really got to go all the way back. I'm talking pre-1900s. And you got to get guys that really understand the restrictions that can come about from deeds that come, from 1890. First off, you got to have somebody who's going to read it, right? Because these are all handwritten documents. And then second, you got to have somebody that has the experience to explain that, all right, on this piece of property, you can only build, per this deed, religious facility or community facility. Or you're going to come up with easements that say, well, light and air for this building is secured in perpetuity. So these are the things that you don't want to get tripped up around, because developers can go in with a certain plan, say build a 10-story building, and then realize when they get through the title report process that there's a light and air restriction that says you can't build past 6. So, those are the type of deals, or those are the type of situations that can push a deal completely awry. That one didn't close. And, for me, obviously, no one likes it when a deal doesn't close. In fact, one of our taglines is, what good is a deal if it doesn't close? But in that situation, there was nothing that could be done. And we felt that entire headache could have been saved if they ran that report or engaged with somebody who could be advisory to them from the title perspective in step 2 as opposed to step 10.
Excellent. No, that makes a lot of sense. And Dorian, you mentioned, you do a lot of deals in Manhattan and the outer boroughs. Are you able to underwrite in all 50 states, or how does that work?
Yeah. So, our strategy at one point was to open up in other states, but right now, especially with the pandemic and, with how we wanted to really build our company, the company, I will say, has been around for 14 years. And, sometimes to me, it sounds like it's a lot, but at the same time, it's not. I feel like we're really finding where our skill set is, and we really specialize in New York, New Jersey. That's where we're putting our resources, and that's we want to be known as the best in New York and New Jersey. So it is not 50 states that we include this level of advisory, because, as you know, every state's different, the rules are different. We are getting involved in situations where will this fire escape really impede my FAR in a development site in Manhattan? I'm not going to pretend to use all our resources to try to figure that out in Oklahoma as opposed to here. So, our power niche is New York City. our goal is to be the best here.
I really like that answer because I've had other experiences with title companies where, oh yeah, we'll write in Florida and they're based in New
Yeah,
York and they've only done a couple transactions there and the deal's hairy and you have a lot of, you
right.
know, uh, a tug of war with to get to the closing table. So I really like that answer with your niche and you focus on what you're good at and what you know, and you've got to be the best
100%.
at it. So I really like that.
Yeah.
Um, Excellent, Dorian. So as we wind down the show, how can my audience reach out to you and find you and learn more about you?
Yeah, so I have a white paper coming out called Defending the Deal. A lot of what we do is defending deals, is to make sure that we understand what you want to accomplish and that we can help you from a title perspective. And not just from that, there's advisory that we offer as well, not formally, but just naturally from being involved in real estate for so long and knowing all the players, that we can help from a value add perspective. But I have a white paper coming out. I'll have my team share that with you. They can always find me at cornerstonelandabstract.com. I also have my own website, dorianlam.com. And no, that's really it.
It's a lot. Yeah, they'll look forward to reading that white paper. And if you liked what you heard and or saw today, please give us a rating and review on iTunes. It'll help Dorian and my message get out to a greater audience and would really appreciate if you left a review. So I will have a link to Dorian's social, website and his other platforms in our social media description and also on iTunes as well. So definitely feel free to reach out to Dorian for any of your title or real estate needs. So really appreciate you coming on, Dorian, and hope to see you around.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you.